My name is Samantha Singh, and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Bent Pen Press. The beginning of Bent Pen Press really coming together and the idea taking shape was a lot of figuring out what I needed to figure out, because I'd had a supporting role in a couple literary journals at university, but I'd never been the leader of a project this large. One of the first people that I asked to join me was Bianca King, a really good friend of mine. And one of the reasons why I asked her to join is that while our tastes may differ and while our expertise may differ, I trust her vision, I trust her aesthetic taste. So I knew that she was somebody that I could trust with this vision to bring something that I might not bring, but that I would appreciate. So we have a staff of 2, we have a logo, we have an Instagram, we have a website. We're really proud of our little branding presence that we've established and really focused on. And so we're starting to put out posts letting people know that we're looking for the work of Belizean writers for publication in a book that will feature all Belizean writers. And a comment comes in on the post asking, do you pay your writers? And it was something that we hadn't thought about up until that point, because our wheelhouses were really what we were doing. The marketing side, the visual side, the making sure everything was gorgeous. And that question was the reason why I asked André to join our team. His experience, which far outweighs mine in the publishing world, was something that I felt we really needed on our team.
My name is André Habet, and I'm an assistant editor at Bent Pen Press. I've been working as an editor for a variety of publications for 10 years at this point. I've worked for literary publications and academic journals, and have developed several small or self-released pieces of work that for me, it's just about the joy of it, the joy of making something that speaks to my sense of what there needs to be more of in the world in terms of thought or expression.
Hi, my name is Bianca King, and I am the co-editor of Bent Pen Press. So my title falls directly under Sam's, therefore I am the second in command, right-hand man, whatever it is you want to call it. And I ultimately cooperate with Sam to make the big business decisions at the end of the day. And I focus a lot on protocol and the financial aspects of the business.
That's why one of the important steps in this process for me is team building, even though it's not the first one I undertook. Because through the process, I realized just how crucial it is to be able to accept that critique, to be able to accept that you don't know everything, to be able to accept that there are people who have skills that you do not have, who have experience that you do not have, who have knowledge that you don't have, and that they can help you.
You know, we're a team made of creatives, and that, especially in the beginning, presented its own problems because we had to change our mindsets on how we were going to look at Bent Pen. Although it is a passion project for us, and that passion is what keeps us motivated, it's the business aspect that ultimately guarantees our longevity. And that is why protocols are important, so that everybody in the team has a basic understanding of what is expected of them. And nothing can necessarily be too small. It can be a protocol that starts off in your business plan that talks about your mission statement, who is going to be in charge of certain bank accounts, itemized receipts and invoices and expenses are being recorded and documented, how we're going to conduct business with customers, what kind of language are we going to use, what mediums are we going to use, are we going to allow business transactions to happen on Instagram and WhatsApp or just email. Another really big one is communication. How are we going to talk to each other? And this may seem arbitrary, especially because most of the time you're going to start a team with people that you already know. But it's important to have something that dictates the kind of behavior that you're going to expect in your company setting. Having something like a discrimination clause when people are getting into your team so that everyone understands what will and will not be tolerated. So overall, protocols are important because they hold accountability, they set a standard, and they keep consistency. And consistency is key to a successful business.
I truly believe that one of the successes of Bent Pen has been our marketing and our online presence and our understanding of the demographics that we're trying to reach out to. I think that it's really important to recognize that literature has an audience, that everything has an audience, and figuring out your particular audience and your particular aesthetic are going to help your work get into the hands of more people. Because although it's not the most important thing, marketing is the only way that you're going to get that message out. Finding your community is hugely important for creative projects. So when we started our weekly writers group that ran for about 5 months, it wasn't just about getting submissions, it was about developing relationships with the Belizean creative community.
I think hosting events in person is really great because it gives an opportunity for people to gather and see the life in literature, recognize that writers come from a variety of backgrounds. I think when people attend an open mic, I hope that what they see at a Bent Press open mic is that writers are there not to be pretentious or to lord over some type of knowledge, but to engage with others, to share others, you know. Everybody writes to some extent to be understood. And I think many people who may have had poor experiences learning reading or writing may conflate any sort of writing community with a community of exclusion. And I hope that the Bent Press open mic shows that what we're striving for is radical inclusion of peoples who might often feel excluded from mainstream society. I think the biggest hurdle is to get the word out there, to earn the trust of writers who are willing to risk their work with you. I think moving forward, the goal is simply to work harder to gain the trust of an even broader spectrum of the Belizean writers so that we can publish work from all sorts of literary backgrounds so that this can really be reflective of the many voices that are out there.
One of the advantages of having somebody with an understanding of design and branding on your team is that you won't have to outsource the actual development of the book that you're going to print, because that is a job in and of itself. And you're going to want to double check it and triple check it and quadruple check it to make sure that you're not misrepresenting anyone's work.
Another huge piece of advice that I can give for anybody that wants to make a physical book is keep records of your finances. Please keep records of your finances. This is so important. You need to hold yourself accountable for what kind of money is going into this, because if you're not paying attention to finances, you're going to run into trouble and then it's not going to work out.
My advice would be that you don't think of the final product in comparison to what anyone else is doing. Consider your own constraints and think creatively about how you can work within those. So whether that's making a zine, whether that's making a handful of books by hand printing them very simply, you want to be able to do something at your level without waiting for you to necessarily have all the resources to do it in the way that you imagine it needs to be done. And once you're able to do it, you'll just engage in the action of repeating it over and over again, and hopefully over time you're able to gather the resources to get to where your imagination is.
Finding our printer was one of our bigger hurdles when it came to bringing our book to life. Whether it was the international paper shortage that happened last year or the shipping costs, there were a lot of things that we had to figure out that were not necessarily easy.
And of course, quality control. So we tried so hard in the beginning to make sure that the book was going to be printed in Belize. And unfortunately, it just wasn't going to be economically sound for us to do that. So we ended up outsourcing to the United States for a printing company. We do want to change this. It's in a protocol and a business plan that we will eventually be able to make our own books in-house and have a functioning workshop. So outreaching to American vendors is definitely can be a little intimidating because the market is so huge here and you don't know where to start. But it's also very exciting because a lot of vendors have never had a book from a Belizean before, and that in of itself gives you an opening because they've never seen anything like this, they've never had anything like this, and that is how you market it, and that's how you start off, and you go in there guns blazing with all the confidence in the world, and they will listen.
What you're offering the people who submit their work to you is exposure. It's access to a broader audience. So your job as the publisher is to find that audience, to get that work in front of that audience.
For the most part, any books that I've bought at any given town I've visited, I'm always able to remember that place when I pick up that book, tracing the steps. So, my book collection is a representation of my travel, of my life experiences. And similarly, I think having your book, when you're a publisher, available to others, it can make it part of a more intimate experience for them, as opposed to if they were just simply buying it online. My plans for the press moving forward is I simply want to continue to find ways to scale up in a sustainable way, meaning both sustainable in what us as editors who are volunteering our time can do, but also sustainable in that we are always fulfilling a need that's out there, and that we're willing to evolve and be flexible to meet those needs of readers and writers in Belize.
Issue number 1 was intended as the first edition in a recurring yearly anthology. And as long as I'm around, we're going to be putting out one of these a year. I hope to branch out into things like single author books, poetry collections, art books, cookbooks, really Belizean books. That's what we seek to create, is Belizean books. Anything that highlights Belizean culture, anything that shares Belizean knowledge, anything that is truly Belizean.
The biggest advice I can give anybody that wants to do this, that is so enthralled by this idea, is knowing, first of all, that it is possible, but it's going to take a lot of work. And you have to be dedicated, and you have to be willing to have it as something that you're doing in your spare time. Because André, Sam, and myself, we all have jobs outside of this, we all have commitments, I have school, and you have to want it enough. You have to want to make a difference at the end of the day and want to perform, because if you don't, it's not going to happen. I think by far my biggest goal for the press moving forward is being able to do a little bit more community outreach. Hopefully we get to a place where we can start visiting schools and holding larger workshops. Being able to get to that place where we can start giving back to the community the way that, we have planned to and that we've outlined to, that's why managing finances and having protocols in place is so important, because that is what's going to ultimately get us to that place where we can expand, where we can hire more people on the team, where we can get extra readers, we can pay more writers, we can make a bigger book, and the ball just keeps rolling and rolling and rolling.
Expanding and growing as a literary journal is one of my priorities for Bent Pen. I want to see us grow to the point that we're able to completely finance ourselves. I want to see us be able to put out multiple books a year. I want to see us in Barnes & Nobles. I want us to be as legitimate as any other international publishing house.
My main piece of advice is love your work, love your writing, and love the process of being able to produce the works of others. And never forget, all of this is a gift.